So this video, I'm going to cover word order. If your first language is not English, you will most likely need some extra help when writing in standard or formal English. New students of standard English often make similar kinds of errors. Even if you have been speaking English for a long time, you may not feel as confident in your written English skills. This chapter covers the most common errors made by English language learners and helps you avoid similar mistakes in your writing. Basic sentence structure. The most basic sentence structure in English is a subject plus a verb. What is a subject? A subject performs the action in the sentence, and the verb identifies the action. Keep in mind that in some languages, such as Spanish and Italian, an obvious subject does not always perform the action in a sentence. The sentence is often implied by the verb. However, every sentence in English must have a subject and a verb to express a complete thought. Subject plus verb. Samantha sleeps. Not all sentences are as simple as a subject plus a verb. To form more complex sentences, writers build upon this basic structure. Adding a prepositional phrase to the basic structure creates a more complex sentence. A preposition is a part of speech that relates a noun or pronoun to another word in a sentence. It also introduces a prepositional phrase. If you can identify a preposition, you will be able to identify a prepositional phrase. Samantha sleeps on the couch. And so you have to memorize what this means for the test. So common prepositions. And prepositions show time and place. So about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, behind, beside, between, by, during, except, for, from, in, into, like, of, off, on, over, through, to, toward, under, until, up, with, without, usually showing some kind of location. Another sentence structure that is important to understand is subject, verb, object. There are two types of objects, direct object and indirect object. A direct object receives the action of the verb, and a direct object comes directly after the verb, hence the name, direct object. Janice writes a letter. Janice is the subject, writes is the verb, a letter is the direct object. Indirect object. An indirect object does not receive the action of the verb. So Janice writes me a letter. So Janice is the subject, writes is the verb, a letter is the direct object, and the indirect object is me, because here you have, it's understood. Janice writes to me a letter. And so in older English, we used to say to me. But now in spoken English, the to is understood. And so that's why it's indirect, because the me does not come directly after the verb, if that makes any sense. And so I think they try to explain it here. The action writes is performed for or to the indirect object me. So basically me, and if you really want to understand this, it should be Janice writes a letter to me. Then you can understand why to me is an indirect object, because it doesn't come directly after the verb, if that makes sense. So basically you just have to understand that a direct object comes after the verb and an indirect object does not come after the verb, and I think you have to memorize it the way they say it. That's another thing about taking a test. If you don't, even though my definitions are the same, you have to go by what the wording of the book. So whatever the wording of the book says a direct object is, then that's what it is. And you can click on this, I think, and you can get the direct object. You get the definition. So you can click on these bolded words to get its definition. Okay, so direct and indirect object. So here you have Captain Kirk told the crew a story. So here you have the direct object, and a story is the indirect object. Jermaine gave his girlfriend a dozen yellow tulips. So Jermaine gave to his girlfriend, so that's the indirect object, a dozen yellow tulips, and that's the direct object. English speakers rely on the following two common ways to turn sentences into questions. Move the helping verb and add a question mark. Add the verb do, does, did, and add a question mark. Sentence. Sierra can pack these boxes. Can Sierra pack the boxes? Sentence. Jolene skated across the pond. Did Jolene skate across the pond? So yeah, you can add can and did in order to create a question. Adjective. An adjective is a kind of descriptive word that describes a noun or pronoun. So you got to memorize their definition. It tells which one, what kind, and how many. Adjectives makes your writing more lively and interesting. Keep in mind, a common error that English language learners make is misplacing the adjectives in a sentence. Because in English, adjectives, for the most part, come before the noun. There are some exceptions. And also English language learners also don't know the order of adjectives. So the order of your adjectives would be opinion, size, shape, age, color, ethnicity, material. In that order. So an interesting, a boring book, a fun ride, size, a large. So if you wanted to do it this way, an interesting, large, round, new, orange, Italian, silk dress. Okay? So you do it in this order. Why? I've had several ESL students ask me, teacher, why is it in that order? And I have no clue. That's just the way it is. That's a very interesting question. Why the English, was structured that way, and it is what it is. The most basic sentence structure is subject plus a verb that expresses a complete thought. Adding a prepositional phrase or direct object or indirect object to a sentence makes it more complex. English speakers change a sentence into a question in one of the following two ways: moving the helping verb and adding a question mark, or adding the verb do, does, did, and adding a question mark. Adjectives follow the particular order before the noun. The order is opinion, size, shape, age, color, ethnicity, and material. And if you can't remember that, then you can always just write it down. So now this one, I'm going to go to section 5. So I will be doing section 4, 1, and 5 in this particular video. So here we have section 5, because this is what you have to learn for this week. Verb tenses. So when you have verb tenses, okay, you must always use a verb in every sentence you write. Verbs are parts of speech that indicate actions or state of being. The most basic sentence structure is a subject followed by a verb. And so simple verb tenses. So you have the past, the simple past, the simple present, the simple future. The simple past, yesterday I jumped. Present, simple present. Today I jump. Simple future. Tomorrow I will jump. Here are some regular simple present tense verbs. Simple past. I washed, I asked, I coughed. Simple future. I will work, I will kiss, I will erase. There are some irregular verbs that formed in English that are formed in special ways. The most common of these are be, do, and have, irregular verbs. To be, and then of course you would know all of this, was, am, simple past was, simple present am, simple future will be. Perfect verb tenses. Up to this point, we have studied 3 simple verb tenses: simple present, simple past, and simple future. Now we will add 3 more tenses, which are called perfect tenses. They are present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. These are the 3 basic tenses of English. A past participle is often called the ed form of a verb because it is formed by adding d or ed to the base form of regular verbs. Past participles can also end in int or en. Keep in mind, however, the past participle is also formed in various other ways for irregular verbs. And so when you have a present perfect or a past perfect, that means that that tense is formed with to have plus a past participle. So I have helped. So when you have I have helped, that is present participle. I had helped is the past participle. And I will have helped, that is the future. Let me do that again. I have helped is the present perfect. I had helped is the past perfect. I will have helped, that is the future perfect. And when you have a perfect tense, it means that you have one action happening before another action. So here, when you say, I have lived in Los Angeles for many years, that means that you have something that happened a little bit in the past and then still continuing to the future. I have talked for this video for 11 minutes and 53 seconds. So that means I started 11 minutes ago, I have started, and I'm still continuing into the future. That is the present perfect. Okay, it's something that happened a little before and still continuing now. Past perfect. I had brushed my teeth before I went to bed. So past perfect means 2 past actions, and the past perfect is always the action that happens first. Okay, so I had read my book on Tuesday, and then before I took my test on Wednesday. So past perfect is always the past action that's more into the past than another past action. Same thing with the future. Okay, I will have taken my bath at 4 o'clock before I go on my date tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So you have 2 future actions. And then the future perfect is the future action that happens first. Always the perfect tenses happen first. Then another future action or another past action happens after that. So you use the perfect tenses with have plus a past participle or plus and when you have 2 actions, one happening before the other. That's how you use perfect tenses. And I went off your book because I think that's what they're trying to say here. Okay, the bus had left. Theo arrived at the station. So the bus had left at 3 o'clock, and then Theo arrives at his station at 5 o'clock. So always the past perfect, the perfect tense, always occurs before. Always, it's the past action that happens before another past action, and then the future perfect is the future action that happens before another future. Like I will have studied all my nursing classes before I will have graduated in 2025. So I will have studied, that's the future perfect, all my classes before I graduate. Another future tense, another future whatever in 2025. That's what the future this is. Okay? Whereas when we have the simple tenses, okay? Yesterday, I went to the store. It's just one action. It's finished. There are no other actions before that or after that. Tomorrow, I will go to the store. That's one action. Completed, finished, that's it. Tomorrow. And then today, I'm doing this. I do my lecture. That means I finish, one action, finish, completed, that's it. But when you do the perfect tenses, it means you're having 2 actions, and the perfect tense is the one that happens before. That's it. That's all you have to remember. That's very easy to do. So let me go over the book a little bit so that you can, understand this a little more. Use the present perfect tense to describe a continuing situation and to describe an action that has just happened. I have worked as a caretaker since June. This sentence tells me that the subject has worked as a caretaker in the past and is still working as a caretaker in the present. Dmitri has just received an award from the Dean of Students. This sentence tells us that Dmitri has very recently received the award. See, so here for past perfect, the bus had left by the time Theo arrived at the station. Oh, this means he missed his bus. Notice that both actions occurred entirely in the past, but one action occurred before the other. At some time in the past, Theo arrived at the station, but at some time before that, the bus had left. So always the past perfect, I had brushed my teeth before I go to bed. Well, this one, the bus had left before the Theo arrived at the station, which means that Theo missed his bus. That's what it means. The future perfect tense describes an action from the past in the future. And if the past event has already occurred, use the future perfect tense when you anticipate completing an event in the future. You will have forgotten me after you moved to London. Notice that both actions occur in the future, but one action will occur before the other. At some time in the future, the subject you will move, future tense, to London, and sometime after that, the subject will have forgotten the speaker, me. I know that sounds so confusing, doesn't it? Progressive tense. Progressive tense means that you're still doing something. Okay, so progressive tense describes an unfinished or continuing action, such as right now, I am speaking. Right now, I am recording this video, and I'm still recording this video. I haven't finished recording this video. That's called a progressive tense. And in other books, it's also known as a continuous tense. Luckily, you don't have to know that for the quiz. You just have to know their wording of progressive verb tense to describe an continuing or unfinished action. You got to memorize their definition for their quiz. So the present progressive tense is like I am going, I am speaking, he is doing. Peter is starting school on Tuesday. Janetta is getting her teeth cleaned. I am studying ballet at school. So it's something that's happening right now and continuing and continuing. It's not finished. And here, the past perfect describes an action or state of being that took place in the past and that continues to take place in the past. So to make verbs in the past progressive tense, combine these two parts, was or were helping. You should use the past progressive tense to describe a continuous action in the past, to describe a past activity in progress while another activity occurred, to describe two past activities in progress at the same time. Ellen and I were planning a vacation. This sentence describes a continuous action in the past. I was helping a customer when I smelled delicious fried chicken. This sentence describes a past activity in progress while another activity occurred. While I was finishing my homework, my wife was talking on the phone. This sentence describes two past activities in progress at the same time. The future progressive tense describes an action or state of being that will take place in the past, that will continue to take place. The action will have started at that future moment, but it will not have finished at that moment. Will be helping is the future progressive tense. Samantha and I will be dancing in school next week. Tomorrow, Agnes will be reading 2 of her poems. So similar to the present perfect tense. Oh, okay. And then the last batch is the present perfect progressive. And believe me, most ESL students do not know how to use this. Most ESL students stop at the first six. Let's see, the simple tenses, the progressive tenses, and that's it. And then most Americans do use the perfect tenses, and then nobody uses the perfect progressive tenses because it's so complicated. Similar to the present perfect tense, the present perfect progressive tense is used to indicate an action that was begun in the past and continues into the present. However, the present perfect progressive is used when you want to stress that the action is ongoing. To make verbs in the present perfect, to make verbs in the present perfect progressive tense, combine the following parts. Has been helping. She has been talking for the last hour. This sentence indicates that she started talking in the past and is continuing to talk in the present. I have been feeling tired lately. This sentence indicates that I started feeling tired in the past and I continue to feel tired in the present. So instead of indicating time as in the first sentence, the second sentence uses the adverb lately. You can also use the verb recently when using the present perfect progressive. Similar to the past perfect tense, the past perfect progressive tense is used to indicate an action that began in the past and continue into another time in the past. The past perfect progressive does not continue into the present, but stops as a designated moment in the past. The employees had been talking until their boss arrived. This sentence indicates that the employees were talking in the past and they stopped talking when their boss arrived. I had been working all day. The sentence implies that I was working in the past. This action does not continue into the future, and the sentence implied that the subject stopped for unstated reasons. So the future perfect progressive tense is rarely used. It is used to indicate an action that will begin in the future and will continue in the future. By the end of the meeting, I will have been hearing about mortgages and taxes for 8 hours. This sentence indicates that in the future, I will hear about mortgages and taxes for 8 hours, but it has not happened yet. And I can tell you that it even sounds odd. I will have been hearing. That sounds very odd in English because it's used, the future perfect progressive, because it's used so rarely. What is a gerund? A gerund is a form of a verb that is used as a noun. All gerunds end in ing. Since gerunds function as nouns, they occupy places in sentences that a noun would, such as the subject, direct object, and object of a preposition. So you can use a gerund as a subject. Traveling is Cynthia's favorite pastime. As a direct object, I enjoy jogging. As an object of a preposition, the librarian scolded me for laughing. And so all of these words are gerunds. Denise considered moving to Paris. I hate cleaning the bathroom. Nate imagines winning an Oscar. Mom says she has stopped worrying. An infinitive is a form of a verb that comes after the word to and acts as a noun, adjective, or adverb. So to plus the infinitive form of so an infinitive is like to help, to arrive, to win, to close, to eat. And so you may wonder why we're learning infinitives and gerunds. So with some verbs, take a gerund, and some verbs take an infinitive. And it's hard to know which is which, especially for most native speakers. We can kind of tell which verbs take a gerund and which takes an infinitive. But ESL students don't know. They just have to memorize it or just learn the language just by listening to native speakers talking. So begin, hate, forget, like, continue, start, buy, prefer, love. These verbs can take both infinitives and gerunds. Okay, so key takeaways. Verb tenses tell the reader when the action takes place. Actions could be in the past, present, or future. There are some irregular verbs in English that are formed in special ways. The most common of these irregular verbs are the verbs to be, to have, and to do. There are 6 main verb tenses in English: simple present, simple past, simple future, present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. Verbs can be followed by either gerunds or infinitives. And that's it for this particular video. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time.